Nothing could have prepared me for the joy and responsibility of being a parent. It's the best part of my day, and coming home and getting to pick up my daughter and be with her. And I remember the first time we were bringing her home from the hospital, and I was worried, like, are we allowed to do this? Are none of y'all coming with us to help? Because what an awesome responsibility it is to take care of a newborn infant. They're completely dependent upon you as parents, because a baby can't take care of themselves, and she couldn't feed herself or clothe herself or protect herself. We have to do all that for her. But of course, as parents, because of the love that you have for your children, it doesn't matter what you need to do. You make any and all sacrifices to take care of your children. It reminds me a lot of the relationship that Israel had with God and the relationship that we have with God. In Ezekiel chapter 16, we have a story that God tells of Israel's history with him. And he begins in verse 4, describing them like an infant, but in a much worse predicament. He says, "As for your birth, on the day that you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to cleanse you, nor rubbed with salt, nor wrapped in swaddling cloths. No eye pitied you to do any of these things to you out of compassion to you. But you were cast out in the open field. You were abhorred on the day that you were born. And when I passed by you and saw you wallowing in your blood, I said to you in your blood, live. I said to you in your blood, live." See, the story of Israel, God says, is that you were like this abandoned child. An infant that could do nothing for itself, that was sitting there in its own blood, and no one had cared for it, no one had wrapped it, and God came by and saw Israel and had compassion on Israel and made it his child. And he protected them, and he entered into a covenant with them. And you would think, after entering into a covenant with Israel and making her flourish and growing her the way that he did, that they would have praised him and loved him forever. But the sad part of Ezekiel chapter 16 is it tells a different history. It tells about how Israel instead turned and forsook the Lord and took all the wonderful things that God had done for them and gave them to false gods and to other people. And God judged him for that. And this story can either be very similar to our own or hopefully a little bit different. You see, much like Israel, we are like spiritual infants. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we are like that child wallowing in our own blood. The blood is sin. There is nothing that we could do to save ourselves. We cannot protect ourselves. We cannot care for ourselves. We are in desperate need of God. And yet through Jesus Christ, God has passed by and said to us, live. And he's offered to us a covenant relationship with him, an opportunity to become his child, to flourish under his protection, that he would just lavish on us his love and his grace and his mercy. And if you want to enter into that covenant with him, it's so simple that if you would believe in Jesus as the Son of God, that when you're buried in that baptismal water by faith, you are renewed and made a new creation, forgiven all your sins, and adopted as part of the family of God. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, do I have a history like Israel? Or am I going to tell a very different history? After God has adopted us into his family and loved us and lavished on us his grace and his mercy, do I turn and go back to the world and give all the gifts God has given to me over to Satan and over to the things of this world? If I do so, rest assured, God is going to judge me for that. I cannot think that God will judge the rest of the world, and yet I, who practice the very same things, will escape God's judgment. You see, I have to follow Jesus Christ. I have to be a disciple. And I hope that the story I could tell and the story you can tell and what I can do is instead turn and love God with all my heart, all my soul, and all my mind for the love and the grace and the mercy that he has bestowed on me and upon my family. See, much like the joy that I have with my daughter, I love her so much. And the joy that I have and the family that we have, and it's my prayer that we'll grow up to be a family that not just loves each other, but that loves God. And that is what I hope for your family too.